So understanding kind of their baseline stage on the social communication bridge is important. And one of the things I would say is I'd love to talk about symptoms that children present with in school that have the sensory challenging problems that you see, and kind of what parents like look for. Because I think some of our listeners are like, wait, how do I know if my child, I mean, of course, an evaluation is needed if it's really a concern to really figure out the areas of sensory so we can talk about that. But what are the basic things that you would tell a parent and a teacher to look for?
Oftentimes I'll ask them, where is the student standing when they come into the classroom? Are they willing to go to a desk and sit down, or are they gravitating to the window? Always. Do they always go to the window? Are they staying in the doorway? Those are some huge indicators right off the bat that something is not right. They don't feel comfortable in that environment. Another thing is, if they're of a young age where they're still doing circle time and things like that, can they stay in a designated spot in the circle? Are they getting up and running around? Are they climbing on top of somebody else? Are they doing these things? Because it presents in so many different ways. Or are they in that space, but they're not communicative? They're not making eye contact. They're not able to hold eye contact. All of those pieces are going to lend itself to that. Are they covering their ears? Do they have their hands up against their throat? Those are all signs of fear and everything. So what are we seeing with what they're going on? You know, are their eyes exceptionally widened? Is their chin forward of their body line? I always ask parents that. Is their chin carried forward of their body line, and is it not part of their physical makeup? It's something that they walk. Do they walk with their shoulders ahead of their hips? Because that's usually a telltale sign that their anxiety is heightened if those shoulders are ahead of the hips. Are they walking on the balls of their feet? If they're walking on the balls of the feet and they're circling, I'm always like, ooh, bad things are going to happen. we're going to see that they're going to get really wound up, and they're going to be very, very uncomfortable very quickly, and they're going to be extremely dysregulated. So if you see that circling, step in the middle and say, hey, how you doing? I'm so glad to see you today. Let's go do this activity together, and connect with them, make them feel safe, and then engage them in some sort of an activity to get them transitioned back in.
I'm kind of big with like the terms and the words to help people connect. And I'm hearing look, listen, and learn. As a teacher, look, listen, and learn. What is your student telling you by what they are or are not doing? What do they look like? And the same with parents. I mean, so many times when you hear the term selective mutism, it's they're not speaking. What can we do to get them to speak? Say hi to your teacher right away. Go up to your peer and ask them how their weekend was, and sit in the group so that you're part of it. You're basically I mean, I don't want to use the word disrespect because that's not what they mean to do. But what I feel is they're not understanding the child and their needs. If they're not going in the room and the parents are like, well, they have extreme separation anxiety. Perhaps they do, but sometimes it's they don't feel safe in the room, and they don't feel safe with the people in the room, and they don't feel safe with the expectation in the room because it makes them feel anxious and overwhelmed. They're not regulated yet. They need more time. Arriving early, going with a friend, telling the teacher to direct them somewhere rather than asking them to figure it out themselves. So how about from a parent perspective? What are some of the things you tell parents to say, hey, what you may be seeing at home could be sensory based?
Oftentimes I'll tell parents, are your kiddos gravitating towards, like, you know, all kids gravitate to screens, but are they gravitating to screens and then having a lot of challenges coming off the screens, even almost to the point of getting really amped and upset and angry with those sorts of things? But are they seeking other things? Are they seeking that sort of sensory feedback because of that and not wanting it to be calm and quiet? Are they trying to get you to fight with them? So sometimes when you've gone really far, they're no longer in the shutdown mode and they're more in the oppositional defiant mode, especially if they've been at school all day where they've barely interacted and the teacher says, oh, they're never a problem, they're never a problem. And they go home and you say, my gosh, they're so oppositional defiant at home. And it's like, well, it's because they've got a lot of that pent up and they don't know how else to deal with it. So a lot of it is about engaging their brain. So they're really trying to have engagement. So find other ways to have that engagement with them in order to do that. And I always say, go back to water. Water is a natural regulator for every human being. So have them do the dishes, water the plants, fill the dog water bowl, get the waters ready for dinner at night. take a shower, take a bath, because all of those things are going to help calm and relax them so that you can connect with them on a much more deeper level, so that they're not constantly going from activity to activity trying to find that stimulation, or trying to stimulate themselves by picking on a sibling or doing something like that, or reporting to you whenever the sibling is arguing with them or doing something with them that they don't feel comfortable with. And that's another way that they're trying to engage themselves at that point and feel safe.
Yeah, for sure. And so some of these kids come out of school like dysregulated. They've been pent up, many of them all day.
Yeah.
Then you have the child that felt overstimulated in school just from everything that made them shut down. They come home and they need time to regulate. And actually, those kids, what I find, they like to vegetate. So I say to the parents, you're not going to rush them to do an activity right away. You're not going to ask them to do their homework right away. You put up the structure, consistency, routine, and predictability in their life through their schedules, but you understand that maybe they need some downtime first. And so that's the look, listen, and learn piece. But I do find a lot of our sensory kids just the dysregulation, like you said. And you just have to kind of read them and kind of sometimes do the opposite, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
that
usually is the opposite of what they want. And they're going to tell
yeah,
you,
yeah,
"Oh, I want this," and I'm like, "Yep, but you know what? Do not know your body as well as I could tell by looking at it right now. So you may want that, but this is what you need."
and I do see a lot of kids that have more sensory influenced kids that have what I call the quad, the sleeping issues, the toileting issues, the difficult behaviors, and like eating. So sleeping, eating, toileting behaviors, the quad. So the more they have, the more likely they're sensory. And I think it all has to do with their ability to regulate themselves.
100%. 100%. And it can also come from a variety of other things too, but getting them regulated enough so that the one, they can sleep. I mean, that is such a major thing. And I often tell parents, you don't have a control over everything, but you can control getting them to drink more water and doing those things that help their body be more functional, which will help a little bit with the bathroom issues and things like that. And we see that significantly. I actually had in one of my students' IEPs, the individual education plan, where I said, as a tracker, you need to put in when he's having toileting issues, when he's defecating in his clothes. And this was a kid who, even in high school, this would happen. I said, that's an indicator that his anxiety has risen higher than he can withstand what's going on in school. And everybody needs to back up a little bit and figure out what additional regulation strategies he needs, or modify the plan slightly so that he can be successful.